If you're looking for a hotel, read the reviews before you book the room. Submitted by Mr. Beef Thighs. I'm currently moving across the country from Portland, Oregon to Atlanta, Georgia for a job. Thankfully, I found a furnished apartment in Atlanta, so I wouldn't have to take any bulky furniture and figured I could fit pretty much all belongings into my Toyota Highlander for the cross-country drive. It was just me and my dog, Meatball, and I decided we could make a fun trip of it. It was going to be a grueling 3-day drive if I really pushed myself, but I thought I would stretch it to 5 or 6 and take the opportunity to camp in some of the incredible national parks we were going to be driving through. I'll be honest with you, even though I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, I've never been an outdoorsy kind of guy. I'm honestly not too sure what I was thinking when I planned this trip. I guess I just romanticized the great American road trip in my head a bit too often, plus I wagered it would be cheaper and easier than to have to find a pet-friendly hotel every night. The first night we spent in a campground outside of Pocatello, Idaho. It was a beautiful area. Hills of golden grass stretched up into snow-covered mountains. I watched the sunset as I cooked me and Meatball a hamburger each over my camping stove. Looking out onto the Amber Valley below reminded me of that movie where Tom Cruise punches a horse in the face. I can't remember the name of it. Outside of that brief moment of happiness, watching the sunset and telling Meatball about how he should never piss off Tom Cruise, the first night camping was hell. I didn't know how to properly set up the tent and could only get it halfway erected, and the mosquitoes were in clouds so thick I thought I would choke to death if I breathed in too deeply. That is when I thought I might have bitten off a bit more than I could chew with this road trip. The second night, we camped in Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. This time I set the tent up correctly and the mosquitoes didn't seem as bad, but it was hot. Unbelievably hot, and we didn't have much water. Another night in hell. The third night I decided fuck camping, Meatball and I are going to live in luxury tonight. We're getting a hotel. It ended up just being a shitty motel outside of Wichita, Kansas. We got a late start that morning and it was already dark by the time I found the dumpy little roadside flophouse on a desolate flat stretch of highway that seemed miles away from anything. Picture the house from Courage the Cowardly Dog and you'll have a good idea of how smack dab in the middle of nowhere this place was. I pulled into the ramshackle 2-story motel and saw the roof seemed to bow inwards towards the middle. It was the type of place that you could tell had never been a nice place to spend the night, but it had air conditioning and a bed. That's all I really cared about. I hadn't slept well the last 2 nights and wasn't sure how much further I could drive, and I sure as hell wasn't about to camp another night. This was my only option. I went into the office and requested a room from the Walmart-sized woman who staffed the front desk. For the night or for an hour? She asked me without looking up from her magazine. The night. The woman raised her eyes and stared at me a moment before speaking again. Single or double? She asked. Whatever is available. The woman gestured a meaty arm to the parking lot. Son, there is my car and there is your car. Do you see any other cars? Everything is available. Single or double? Double, I said, slightly embarrassed. I was wondering, do you all allow dogs? I'm planning on having my dog in the room with me. The women stared at me again. We rent rooms by the hour. So yes, I'd say we allow all sorts of animals in here. I took the key, collected my bag and Meatball from the car, and headed to my ground floor room. Room 319. It was the furthest end of the L-shaped motel from the office. I guess that front desk woman wanted her privacy as much as I wanted mine. I approached the door, unlocked it and swung the door wide. The room smelled of mold and had pink wallpaper peeling from the corner near the bathroom. Meatball growled and pulled the leash in the opposite direction. Figuring he had to go to the bathroom, I tossed my bag into the room, closed the door and walked Meatball to the field across the street where he could potty. I stared up at the stars until he finished and we walked back across the street. Crossing the parking lot, I noticed lights flick on and off in some of the rooms. One room had the shimmering blue glow of a television. Oh, everything is available, huh? I thought to myself. I opened the door to my room and, still, Meatball tugged the leash in the opposite direction. I dragged him inside and threw him on the bed opposite mine. He seemed tense, hair stood up on the back of his neck and he glared, unblinking in the direction of the bathroom. I checked the rest of the room out. It was nothing unexpected. Just your everyday hourly rate motel. Dirty bathrooms with single-ply TP, musty carpet that probably hadn't been vacuumed in years, small desk with a heavy and uncomfortable chair, cinder block walls and a TV that was missing a remote control. I sat down on the bed and pulled from my bag a Ziploc bag of dog food and a bowl and fed Meatball his dinner. He wouldn't eat it. I moved to Meatball's bed and tried to calm him down, scratching behind his ears and hugging him gently when the TV turned on. "Welcome to your final destination," the TV blared at maximum volume. The screen showed an airplane pilot grinning ear to ear while speaking into an intercom. "We here at Broken Wings Airlines hope you enjoy your stay in." The pilot never finished his sentence, but stared directly into the camera, unblinking, still holding the intercom to his gaping mouth. The co-pilot also stared straight ahead with a maniacal smile, and after a few moments, a flight attendant entered the cockpit and joined them, staring, seemingly out of the TV. I began to hear what sounded like muffled screams from the passengers behind the cockpit door. I stood up and turned the TV off. I listened to the crackling screen of the old tube television and decided to unplug it as well. I turned to join Meatball back on his bed, when there was a knock at the door. I walked over and looked through the peephole, but didn't see anyone. I closed the curtains and slid the chain lock in place over the flimsy motel door. I hate motels. I'm not sure how anyone ever gets a good night of sleep in them with nothing separating your unconscious dreaming body from the entire world except for a flimsy plywood door. But hey, at least it is better than camping. I went into the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. I was dead tired, and I knew I would be asleep within 30 seconds of hitting the pillow, no matter how ratty the beds were. I remember deciding right then I would push through to Atlanta as soon as possible, and decided the great American road trip I had long dreamed of was just a bunch of annoying, inconvenient bullshit. I jumped into bed and turned out the lights, planning to be asleep in the next 30 seconds. 15 seconds after the lights were out, I heard a voice that wasn't mine, and it definitely wasn't Meatball's. "Oh my God, man." The voice shouted in a panic, "Am I going to die?" I sat up in an instant after realizing the voice sounded like it was coming from my own bathroom. I jumped to my feet and turned on the lamp next to the bed. "I'm fucking dying, I'm die," the terrified voice cried from my dark bathroom. A horrible, wet gurgling sound then seemed to fill the room, like someone was drowning on their own vomit. I kicked open the bathroom door and, on the floor, lay a rail-thin man, leaning against the bathtub with a thick white foam oozing from his nose and mouth onto his chest. His eyes were rolling back in his head, and I saw a needle sticking out from his arm just under a length of rope that was tied around his elbow. Meatball was going fucking berserk. Teeth bared and growling into the dark room. I stepped into the room and turned the light on, and just like that, the man was gone and the horrible gurgling along with it. I stood for a full minute in a cold sweat. I rationalized it. I shouldn't have, but I did. I had been driving for 2 days straight on no sleep and enough caffeine to kill a 5th grader. Of course, I was hallucinating. It would be weird if I wasn't hallucinating at that point, right? I drank a glass of somewhat clear water from the bathroom sink and crawled into bed. I normally don't let Meatball into the bed with me because he farts like a show pony, but tonight, I made an exception. I think we both needed it. I was the big spoon to his little spoon, and I wrapped my arms around him and fell asleep. I woke up to a pinch on my belly. Meatball's nails scratching, and I looked over at the bedside alarm clock, 3:50 a.m. Meatball was under my covers around my torso, having a bad dream and scratching at my chest. I wrapped my arms around him and whispered to him to calm him down when I heard a low growl from the corner near the door. I looked up to see Meatball standing near my bedside, teeth bared, snarling at the shape writhing around under my covers. My mouth went dry and veins flushed with ice water. I just now noticed how cold the mass under my covers was. I gathered my courage and lifted the bedsheet to see a ghoulish pale white face looking back up at me. One of its cold, wet hands lay on my chest, its mouth frozen open inhumanly wide in a nightmarish scowl. The eye sockets were empty flaps of skin with red tears streaking down its face, and it made an awful sucking sound, gasping for air, as its other hand, with long pale fingers, reached out from the dark covers towards my face. I fell backwards out of bed and rushed to turn the lamp on, and it was gone. That was enough. I packed all of our shit as fast as I could and went to the door. I unlocked it, unlatched the chain, and pulled. I couldn't open it. The door seemed to be stuck in place, as if locked from the outside. The TV turned itself on again. You don't want to spook them. This time it was playing a crocodile hunter-esque nature show. On the screen, a man dressed head to toe in khaki was holding a fistful of raw meat in his hand just inches away from the face of skinny and angry-looking dog. They get real angry if you spook them. The dog lunged at the meat and grabbed most of the man in khaki's hand along with it. The dog was ragdolling the man's hand, and at least one finger was shown to have dropped to the ground. The man in khaki stayed kneeling next to the dog, smiling into the camera with dead eyes. He was dripping with sweat. The power button on the TV didn't work, it wasn't even plugged in. I'm not sure why I thought the power button would work. The mute button did work. I took the sheet from my bed and placed it over the TV and went back to work on trying to get the door open. The door wouldn't budge. I picked up the desk chair and swung at the door. It didn't even dent. I swung again and again and again, and the door showed no signs of damage at all. I only stopped when I heard Meatball growling again. I turned around to see the sheet I had placed on top of the TV slowly slide off and into a heap on the floor, then it slowly rose itself up from its center as if it was a 1950s Halloween ghost costume. Then the two sides of the sheet fanned out to create arms and it took a step towards me, making that sucking sound the thing in my bed made. I picked up the desk chair and threw it through the motel room window and out into the parking lot. I grabbed Meatball, vaulted over the broken glass, cutting my hand in the process, and got us to my car. I fumbled around with my keys in my bloody hands like those fucking idiots in horror movies, but eventually got the car open, started it and put it in reverse. As I accelerated backwards, I watched every door to every motel room open to reveal black figures standing in the doorways. They watched me silently. I saw the woman from the front desk wave to me as I peeled out of the parking lot. 2 days and 1 night. That's how long the rest of my drive to Atlanta should take. This morning I tried to Google the motel I stayed at to check the reviews and I couldn't find any mention of it anywhere online. I couldn't even find a satellite image of it on Google Maps. If you're ever in need of a place to stay late at night, please make sure you check out the reviews online first. As for me, I'd rather spend the night camping.